Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined this afternoon by Ian Conroy. It's not the afternoon where you are, Ian, because you're in New Zealand. Tell us a wee bit before we get kick-started on the Celtic chat. That's not an Atalanta top, is it?
It's not actually. I've just noticed the significance. It's actually an Auckland FC shirt, which is the new franchise owned by Bill Foley. So I'm based in Auckland in New Zealand. So it's Auckland FC, if you can see that. Not but Atalanta as well. Yeah, it looks very like an Atalanta shirt. So I do apologize.
Signed? Is there a signature on there?
Yeah, it's actually my son's shirt, and
Right.
they got after the game on Saturday and got the shirt signed. So. I thought I'd wear it just because it was the first ever game and they won 2-0. So,
fantastic. Yeah. We're international, we're continental, and we're joined also from Japan by Liam Carrigan. And I can't move on before I ask you what that is that you're wearing, Liam.
Well, does anybody remember the old Sky One drama Dream Team?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This is a Harchester United shirt from the show. Picked it up last week actually in an online auction in Japan. God knows how it got over here, but plus I thought, we will probably at some point tonight talk about Philippe Clement, so I thought a Lecoq shirt was appropriate.
Well, good shout, yes. Now here's the thing. Everything has a link back to Celtic before anybody in the comment section wonders what on earth we're talking about. Dream Team, of course. Harchester, did you say Harchester United?
Harchester United, yep.
Okay. Now, you may remember a certain Gordon Gallagher, who was a character within that TV show, played by none other than Campbell Morrison, whose name popped up in our recent interview with Tony Roper. His son was the director of the Nearly Mocking documentary, which is above, right there. There it is, right there. Celtic Smiler. There you go. There's the link. We did that. It was seamless. Absolutely seamless. Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. It is Tuesday afternoon, and I'm joined, as I say, by Ian and Liam. Loads to digest from the weekend. Loads to look forward to. Can I say that? Now, Jim Orr rates a European game, Ian, by the number of couches you have to watch it behind, right? And he reckons this is a 2 going on a 3 coucher. What's your thoughts going into this big game on Wednesday night?
Well, firstly, I was one of the I suppose the positivity sort of I was deluded by, against Borussia Dortmund. I thought we were going to get something out of it. Obviously, that proved not to be the case. So for me thinking it was maybe a no coucher, it ended up being like a 4 coucher,
at least,
or a 7 coucher. So. With this one, I'm reticent to sort of say or make a prediction because you never know what sort of Celtic's going to turn up. One thing I do agree on Mr. Orr with is something he mirrored that I thought as well when he said that when he compared sort of the current team, especially in Europe, to the Martin O'Neill team, and he said it was a team full of men, a team full of grown-ups, and I think maybe. We kind of got, it was great to sort of see that we went out and got Engels, and for the money we got him for. But I do still think that the board need to sort of look at sort of spending a bit of money or maybe that level of money on someone who's 27 over, because it means we have less chance of getting out bullied, and we're a bit more streetwise. We need to be streetwise. You need to have players that have been there and done it at the Champions League level. We kind of got away with it at Bratislava, but then obviously were found seriously lacking when it was against Borussia Dortmund. And I don't know if they're the same level as Borussia Dortmund, but they certainly have the capability to give us a doing, So in answer to the question, how many couches? I think it's probably a 3 coucher.
A 3 coucher for Ian. Now, I totally get what he's saying there, Liam, in relation to, I think the point that was made by Jim was sometimes you need to buy for the sake of the team. Rather than the sake of buying a player to make a profit on them. And I know that strategy has worked very, very well, but we need to nurture that player. We need to give them the Champions League experience. And then obviously you can get a scenario where we go up to a game or the calibre of opposition like Dortmund, and we don't have that tactical now, so we don't have the old school mentality of someone who's maybe got Champions League experience. But if you buy a player like that, there's two kind of drawbacks that I think Celtic are looking at. The first one is they might still be very, very expensive, but the second one would be that there's going to be less of a sell-on if you're buying somebody who is coming into that kind of age profile, the player. So I absolutely get what Jim pointed out. We need to give the players the Champions League experience. If that's a learning process, often we will get gubbins like we did against Dortmund, and it's happened. It's happened once every season for the last 3 seasons, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Atalanta are actually kind of to use a Martin O'Neill phrase, they're the benchmark. That's the sort of team we should be looking to emulate. A couple of years ago, they came into the Champions League having, I don't think, played in it before and took it by storm. With some very good players and quite a bit of money spent on them, don't get me wrong, but it shows you that teams that historically don't do anything at this level can just come in and stir things up, and Atalanta have done that. About tonight's game, though, I think this is the second most difficult game after Dortmund for us. I said we could have got a draw in Dortmund, and obviously that did not happen. I think we might have a defeat tonight, but a narrower defeat. I think it could be like a 2-1 or a 3-1. But the positive is, after that, that's our 2 most difficult games out the way, and we already have 3 points on the board. And 10 points or over is probably enough to get us through this. So I still think I think we'll probably lose tonight, but even if we do, I think we're still going to get through to that playoff for the last 16.
For anyone tuning in on UK shores wondering what Liam's referring to, Liam is in Japan, so the game will obviously be night time for him tomorrow. So it is a Wednesday night kickoff. I'm just looking as well, Liam, at what you're saying there, and I do agree. I do think it's going to be up there with the toughest games that we play going into the game. We did a Champions League draw reaction show. I don't think anybody was looking at Dortmund or Atalanta for potential points. The one kind of shining light I've got about the Villa game is maybe they're already through, home and hosed by that stage. I'm kind of hoping that. But even that game, I wasn't looking at that for a potential point winner. Now, we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that happened over the weekend, because obviously that filters in to the thoughts of the manager and the fan base going into the Atalanta game. But I've seen a lot of chat, Ian, mainly on the socials, right? And the socials isn't always the best place for information. It's certainly the best place for misinformation at times. But there seems to be a concern and a worry that the Dortmund defeat has had some kind of lasting damage on the Celtic side on a kind of mentality basis. Do you subscribe to that notion?
I don't know. I was just thinking about that before. And it's like, Aberdeen are doing well. We discussed this last week on the pod. But remember, sort of a kind of struggling Aberdeen last season. They ran us really close in the cup.
Yes.
So, the signs were there. And as we were kind of flying at the time as well. I think when that happened, or we're just starting to sort of come into that zone, maybe just not long after. So the signs were there. So of course, there's it happens quite often. If teams kind of have that hangover after Europe, even if they have a good result, sometimes they sometimes sort of struggle to sort of to play catch up. But remember, over a season, you're going to have peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
And I love a bit of a cliche sometimes, but it is true. So we're going to have a dip at some point in the season. We were flying very early on. Now we seem to have a little bit of a wobble, but it's not as if it was a sort of a defeat against one of the teams at the bottom. We drew against a team that's gone toe to toe with us so far. So yeah, it's played a little bit of a part. I probably think, but we're just getting to get our sea legs back, and hopefully after the Dortmund game, I'm hoping, and I know what Brendan says, he wasn't going to sort of change his principles, but I do think that we need to sort of really. We can't go toe to toe with some of these teams because they will be our undoing. Yeah,
and by the way, it's a good point you make about Aberdeen last season, because that was the purple patch, if you like, that Celtic were going through at that time, where we did seem to click, and we had our core group of players who were doing a job for us, and Aberdeen really pushed us in the semi-final. I think the other thing I would maybe suggest, Liam, is obviously there was a reaction to drawing 2 each. Brendan Rodgers said it felt like a defeat. I get that, because I think we all felt at the time, certainly, we should have had a penalty near the end of the game, last kick of the ball. And after that match, there was a lot of, I think, disappointed Celtic supporters. But maybe the reason that they're disappointed is that we're underestimating Aberdeen that wee bit. Now, I don't think Aberdeen will be pushing for the league come the end of the season. But I do think there's been a huge amount of Scottish football fans and the media who have underestimated the run that they're on. I mean, I've seen someone publishing a list of all the games that they had won. Liam, rather than saying Jimmy Taylor has done so well since he came in, they listed all the games and goes, but they've not played anybody yet, rather than giving the guy credit. And I think that was part of the disappointment.
This is the problem with Scottish football. Anytime anybody does anything positive, we can't wait to shoot them down.
Mm-hmm.
Aberdeen have done really well this season so far, and they proved that they can fight their way back into a game where first half we should have been out of sight, but they showed character to come back and they deserve credit for that. And I tell you what, I am looking forward to Halloween when they play Rangers, because that is going to be that could be a painful one for them. I'll say this now: if Aberdeen play the way they played in the second half against us, if they play that way at Ibrox or Pittodrie, I can't remember where it is, but whichever.
Pittodrie, yeah.
Pittodrie, I apologise. I don't know what day of the week it is or where I am today. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. But more to the point, if they play that way against Rangers, they will take 2 or 3 off them. They'll win by a couple of goals at least, because seeing how rank rotten they were the other day, and seeing how good Aberdeen could potentially be. And let's not forget, Aberdeen sold their best player in the summer. Arguably one of the best strikers in the league last season. And they're still up there fighting. That manager's doing a great job.
He absolutely is. And what they've done with regards to selling the player is that they've reinvested really wisely. They haven't spraffed the money down the drain. And I think also it sets them up for a second kind of wave in January, should they have that ambition to try and build on it, because they'll still have money in the bank. And what happens again, Liam, we've kind of discussed this before, that it injects an energy, a confidence, a positivity, not just in the fan base, but in the city as a whole. You can see it. If the football team and the main venue in a town is booming, the entire town and the entire city is booming. And I think that Aberdeen are seeing a wee bit of that just now. And long may that continue, certainly up to the 30th of October, as you quite rightly pointed out, Liam. Some comments coming in. We're going to be talking about the challenge that Celtic face before we move into the European endeavours of midweek. Nice to see a lot of the regulars coming in. Paddy Lavery, Ewan Boy Martin. And it's Ewan Boy who's coming up for the first word from the comments. I have a new Celtic hero, he says. Alan Morrison, take a bow. You may know Alan Morrison with his data, his analysis, coming into Acsom once a month to chat about all things Celtic. But of course, the Huddle Breakdown is his permanent home, and Celtic by Numbers is his blog. What a great speech on his Huddle Breakdown channel, says Ewan Boy Martin. So go and check it out if you haven't checked out the latest episode already. And we've got Monty, another old school regular, in the chat. That's life. That's what all the people say. They're first in April, but third in May. Is this a plot? Should I have a better rhythm here? Right. They think they're going to change that tune, but deadest no time soon. That's life, and funny as it seems. Well, let's talk about the challenge then, right? Because on a Celtic State of Mind, unlike a lot of the kind of news sources that I see online, we focus entirely on Celtic. If we're looking at our opponents, it's because Celtic are playing them. And I want to talk about the challenge. Guys, because we've kind of touched on it slightly, Ian, with the Aberdeen resurgence that we've seen at the end of last season, moving into this season, which is tremendous. I'm going to ask you right now, and I know that we're not even a quarter of the way through the fixture list. Ian, right now as we sit here, who do you think's our challenger?
Do you mean in the league or
in the league? Yeah.
In the league. Well, I think it remains to be seen whether Aberdeen can go the distance. They haven't got the funds that we've got and at their disposal, or Rangers have got at their disposal. So I think it's over the course of a season, it's likely to be Rangers again. Is my view. I think whether they sack the current manager, it seems to be the sort of time of year, is it October, they normally get rid of the manager.
Yeah.
So they might get that new manager bounce if they do that, and whether they've got some money to sort of hand that new manager or Clement in January, they probably will. So there will be a sort of a kick on from them, I think. Again, that said, they could back Thielen in January as well, and they could kick on. So as it stands at the moment, I would say over the course of the season, it's Rangers as usual.
Right, that is the view of many when I ask that question, Liam. And I think part of the reason for it is the squad depth we could look at. I'm looking at that team though, currently sitting in third. I'm looking at Rangers and I'm thinking, right, not only are they pretty poor on the pitch from what I've seen, there's a bit of upheaval behind the scenes, which is a massive surprise, really, Liam, isn't it? I mean, it's not like we've seen that very often in the last 12 years.
Dream Team had some rough scripts at times, where it was never Rangers board level, I tell you.
No, I know. You wouldn't pass the script if they wrote it as Rangers have in the last 12 years. But I look at that and I can see an implosion. I can see maybe we're on the edge of an implosion. Maybe we've already started the demise into an abyss there. And if that happens, that breathes confidence into Aberdeen for me. And as I said before, they've still got money in the bank. And if the board of directors are confident and ambitious and forward thinking, if this continues up, let's say to January, and you're looking at Ibrox and thinking, wow, it's not getting any better there. You know, there's heads of department vacant, number of them at Ibrox at the moment, and there's a real, for me, there's a real sense in the stands that they're not happy with just about anything, and that will inevitably turn on the manager. You know, around about this time when they're thinking, right, this league's running away from us. That I think should breathe belief into the Aberdeen board that should then filter into the fan base for me in January. So it's a bit of ambition there, but I'm going to say it probably for the first time. I'm going to disagree with Ian for a moment and say that we're not going to get a challenge for Rangers because it looks as though they're on the slide again.
Ultimately, I don't think we're going to really get a challenge this season at all, but I think Aberdeen will finish second.
There you go.
That's what I think. I just think that it's far easier for a team to drop down than it is for a team to come back up, right? Mm-hmm. Because it becomes diminishing returns. When a team's not playing well, fans lose interest, gate numbers go down, shirt sales go down, subscriptions go down for the international base. And Rangers are looking at all of those right now. You know, I would be very interested. Let's just see so let's say they play Aberdeen at the end of the month. They lose that game, as I expect they will. You're then looking at them being potentially 10 points off the lead. Mm-hmm. Then I think Ange and Spurs come calling a week or two later. Yeah. And that is a game that will not be on their season ticket. Don't be surprised if there's less than 10,000 a crowd at that game, if their season is effectively done by then.
Well, we talk about damaging results, Liam. We talk about 7-1 Dortmund. That's going to be huge. A huge fixture for our challengers, or one of the challengers. But I agree as well, at the same time, I think there's been an overreaction to a 2-2 draw against Aberdeen. I want to talk about a few aspects of that game. But when I look at Aberdeen, I think it comes down to ambition, and I do hope they've got ambition when it comes to January, because we've seen it in the past. We've seen a right good Hearts side, fading away. We've seen the same with Hibs. Often, if they've got a few star players, they'll sell them. That kind of sense of, right, but this is what we do. And I just think they should do it differently this time round. And there was a toughness to them. Listen, I thought some of their challenges were OTT. I think there was a bit of leniency with Aberdeen at the weekend, and it didn't help us. We overcame it in the first half. I think it damaged us a wee bit more in the second half. But it's almost as if there's a wily fox in the dugout at the moment, Ian. And it seems to me as though he doesn't fear Celtic or Rangers, which is a massive issue with a lot of people who, not even just from the Scottish game, but who have been at clubs like Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs in the past. There's a fear element, isn't there? And I don't think he's got it.
No, he clearly hasn't, And I think, we said last week, that some players and some managers, you turn up at Celtic Park or Ibrox, and they're playing the jersey, you know, so they're almost lost in the tunnel. He clearly hasn't got that, you know, and he's instilling it into his players. And what I can see from afar, I won't profess to sort of see that I've seen a lot of Aberdeen games. I haven't. I've just seen the highlights on Sports Scene. So yeah, that's in their favour. That's in their favour. They're not sort of fearing anyone because why should he? He's come from overseas.
Let us know in the comment section. Is there a real challenge this season? And if so, who's it going to be coming from? Now, I'm bringing this up from Wee Bree, and in brackets, Wee Bree, just in case you didn't get it first time. Happy 60th birthday to Paul McStay today. He is indeed the maestro, gentlemen. And when you come from our vintage, because it's a similar vintage, Ian, Liam, myself, McStay was the man. Some said he was a world-class footballer. I had the absolute pleasure of speaking to his brother Willie, who said to me that this was during the writing of his book, actually. Remember the book that's never actually been released, Paul McStay's book? He was talking about the clubs who made, not just, you know, they weren't just interested. It wasn't just gossip. They made bids for Paul McStay in the 1980s when McStay was still a teenager. And you're looking at teams like Juventus and Inter Milan wanted to sign Paul McStay. Later down the line, you remember when things were not going so well in the 1990s, we thought we were going to lose him. And we played that game against Hibs at the end of the campaign and we failed to win it. I think they beat us 2-1. Without checking the wiki from memory, I think Hibs beat us 2-1 and we didn't qualify for Europe that season. And Paul McStay ran over to the jungle and threw his jersey into the jungle when we thought that was his last game. However, he signed another contract and remained at Celtic for the rest of his career. The maestro, Liam, when I look at the career that this player had, the fact that he was intrinsically linked to Celtic, even, you know, predating his own birth through his family ties, back in the day, Willie and Jimmy McStay. I look at Paul McStay and think to myself, right, we know he's based in Australia now. Why is he not an Australian ambassador for Celtic Football Club? He should be involved with this football club, Liam.
Yep. I mean, yeah, we've got Paul McStay. I think Willie Wallace is still out in Australia as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
You know, that's another guy that, you know, European Cup winner, should be part of Celtic's retained international staff. And as far as I know, neither of them have any official connection with the club at the moment. I mean, you know, we've talked about it before. The remaining Lisbon Lions should have a lifetime pension for Celtic. End of story, right? But apart from that, it's just, yeah, it just speaks to the lack of international scope with Celtic's entire operation. We are a big international, we're a global brand, but we're thinking like a wee Scottish corner shop. That's the reality.
You know, the big thing for me is looking after the ex-players, like you say, Liam. We've spoken about it here. I know that wee Joe works tirelessly with the Former Players Association, but I don't think he gets much in the way of assistance by the club. And it's one of the things, anybody that's kicked a ball for Celtic should be able to go up to that front door, walk into the reception and just say, I'm here to see the Former Players Association. There's a wee office somewhere in the stadium where they can go. And that visit just could be because they're back in Scotland for a week, because they're elsewhere. Or it could be that they're struggling, be that financially, health, bereavement, you know, gambling addiction, alcoholism, whatever it is. If you've played for Celtic, there should be somewhere for them to go at our football club. And that's something that I think we should look at seriously. Now, Paul McStay, the maestro, he was well named, Ian, wasn't he? I mean, growing up, I think I've told this story before, and if I can find the picture, I'll post it up on here before the end of the show. I used to write to all the Celtic players, right? I was that wee nippy guy. I used to write. I remember it was the Panini, you know, the sticker album. They released a yearbook. John Barnes was on the front of it playing for Liverpool. And if you collected enough vouchers on the back of your sticker packets, you could stick all the vouchers down on a card, like a scratch card, send it away, and they would send you this book. And in that book was every team in Britain, right? And it told you their address. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to write to all these teams. I'm going to write to individual players. Yes, I was a stalker. They could have called me Stan, right? And I wrote to Paul McStay. And I never, ever got a response, right? Never got a response for the great man. And my mum and dad are saying to me, look, Paul, there's going to be piles of fan mail. Every day he walks in, there's piles of fan mail for this guy. He'll get round to it, you know, Ringo Starr style, Ian, 30 years later, Ringo's still writing to his fans, right? And I gave up. I must admit, I kind of gave up to the point where I even wrote to Andy Walker and asked Andy to get me Paul McStay's autograph and all this kind of stuff. So it was years down the line, like seriously, years down the line, I get a handwritten letter from Paul McStay's wife, Anne-Marie. A handwritten letter with all this signed stuff in it. And it was basically saying, so you could do the mass, because I genuinely, it was a few years later, he was on international duty playing San Marino. But he said to his wife, make sure that this gets sent out. And his wife wrote me a beautifully scripted letter and all this signed stuff. I've got a picture of it somewhere and it's in a folder over there. If I can bring it up. So if I didn't already love him, Liam, you know what I mean? That just put him several levels above where he was. But he was a special player. And some people, I don't know if it's because the tail end of his career wasn't a success at Celtic, but there's a generation who didn't see McStay. The guy was a genius.
Oh, he was. I mean, I grew up in England, and I remember, you know, that the kind of English mentality you sort of see in the media, where they kind of sort of scoffing or sniffy about Scottish players or anyone outside of England, really. And I had to fight that my whole life. You know, it was like everyone was sort of cutting about in Liverpool kits and Villa kits and stuff like that, and where I was in the Midlands, and I'd wear my Celtic shirts and stuff like that, and people would take the mickey. But luckily, my Uncle James used to take me to whenever every sort of conceivable holiday, the Christmas holidays, the Easter holidays, the summer holidays, obviously particularly the Christmas and Easter, I'd get taken to games, and it was just mesmerising to watch him. It was a joy to see such a player. You know, I loved every player. I wouldn't even say he was my hero at the time. McAvenny was my big hero, and Brian McClair and stuff like that. But he was that ever-present class act. I remember latterly it looked like Everton were going to get him. I had a friend who was an Everton fan, and there was loads of talk that Everton were going to get him at some point. And it was a couple of times I'd resigned myself to, because Brian McClair left, and I thought, oh God, if he can leave, we might lose Paul McStay as well. But if anyone hasn't seen him, if you're a generation, if you haven't seen, you've got to watch footage of Paul McStay. He was a world-class player. He was a world-class player when he was 18, 19. It was clear to see, you know, he started carrying that team. And I think Celtic took advantage of him, actually. They took advantage of his loyalty. You know, I don't think, and obviously that's been exhibited now with sort of how we've utilised him or not utilised him since he retired. I know he's got his own business. He's out this way now. But a truly a generational talent. I can't speak highly enough of him. And anyone of a similar vintage will echo the same sentiments.
100%. We've got 1,000 watching at the moment, and I'm going to reveal this letter. I found a picture of it anyway, right? So I'm going to reveal this letter. Now, bear in mind, this was written by his wife. Beautiful handwriting. I'm looking at this handwriting, thinking, wow, that is a work of art. So let's bring it up. Here it is. Paul McStay with loads of signed stuff. There was pictures in there, postcards. And actually, he didn't just write them to me. I can notice that Scotland one's got to Jamie. That's my brother. So I asked for stuff for my brother as well. I wasn't shy, let's put it that way. But Anne-Marie McStay, you'll see the signature bottom right. There you go. Absolutely love that. I've got a whole folder of that kind of stuff. Might start doing it again.
Do you know, I don't think they would see that these days.
Exactly.
But the thing I know, did you notice that the Scotland top was an Umbro top, but the sponsor was Adidas? I take it his boot sponsor must have been Adidas at the time.
You're spot on.
that wouldn't get through the brand managers these days. That's
You're right.
else.
I know. They would absolutely Photoshop that Umbro logo off the postcard. No, but there you go. And there's loads more.
Remember the book you sent off, or was that the Rothmans yearbook?
It was something like that, but
with John Barnes. I did the same thing.
Did you have that?
Yeah. I did it as well,
yeah, there you go. So I've got loads there. We've even got a signed picture for Lex Bailey. That's how committed we were to this cause. We've spoken about the challenge.
So the thing that sorry, jump in. The thing that gutted me, because my grandparents lived in Blantyre, and my other grandparents lived in Bealiston, and I found out years and years later that the team used to go and train at Strathclyde Park, which we used to frequent so often. And I was like, honestly, man, it was like, you know, like sort of my children now, they kind of deify like Real Madrid and Barcelona and Man City and stuff. That was what I was like. I'm sure lots of people. I was like that for Celtic, and that especially that secondary team. And I would have had absolute kittens, if I knew that they were there and I could have just walked up and seen them so close up and got their autographs. I wish I had a time machine.
No, you know what? I'm still that wee boy when I meet the Celtic players that maybe we are doing a show with, like John Hartson last week or this week with Gordon Strachan. I get transported back to the 8 or 9-year-old guy who tries to be a pen pal of everybody wearing a Celtic jersey. I'm going to ask you here about VAR decisions. There's been a lot of chat about them at the weekend again, Liam. When Aberdeen scored their third goal, I'm looking at that thinking, wow, that they've done it. They've done it. And then I'm starting to think to myself, wow, the conversation after this game is going to be talking about Aberdeen as genuine challengers. You know, that would have been such an iconic victory for that football club. Coming to Celtic Park, 2-0 down at half-time, pulling it back to 3-2. We, of course, score a goal as well. Both goals, 100%, absolutely no qualms about it. The big one that confused me a wee bit was the handball at the end, because we go live straight at the final whistle. And I hadn't seen conclusive evidence that it wasn't a handball at that stage, Liam. And obviously,
I still haven't.
No, well, here's the thing. What is the still that they've looked at, or where is the footage that they've looked at? Because we didn't see it, did we? We didn't see like what we often do with the lines, you know, the actual image. And then I did see footage on one of the Twitter channels where it looks as though it's ricocheted from his thigh and hit him in the arm. And then I'm looking at that going, all right, I can understand it. But there needs to be a wee bit more clarity, particularly for those at the game, Liam. You imagine being Jim Orr, and you can't see a screen and you don't know what's happening, and then the full-time whistle's blown and you're walking out disillusioned by what's been going on.
Aye, and the thing is, I know, like, at the whatever commentary it was I was listening to, they were like, oh, the Celtic fans are booing, they're not happy with that result. I was like, it's not the result, it's the fact that the referee blew for full time when it should have been VAR checking for a penalty. You know, that was the problem. And it's a bad reflection on Scottish football. You know, I'm watching that game live in Japan, and I'm thinking, what does any Japanese guy watching this think of how much of a Mickey Mouse league Scotland is? You know, with what would have been a 10-second check in the English Premier League. You know, we get, here I am sitting a couple of days later and still, I've no idea whether it hit his hand or not.
This is the thing that we're asking for, is clarity. And as I keep saying with Jim on the show, he's at the game and he doesn't know what's going on. I think the two decisions were absolute stonewall handballs or fouls on the goalie, Ian, in our case. No question whatsoever about that. Disappointing as it is, obviously, near the end of the game to score a goal and think that you won the game. But that handball on the line, what was your take on it, Ian? Because, you know, I've seen Bobby Madden's comments on it. I think he's of the view it's ricocheted off the boy's thigh. I'm not sure what he's looked at, though, because I've not seen anything that's absolutely clear.
Well, it's not massively clear, but I saw I was watching it on the highlights on Sports Scene, and I also saw the comments. It was Simon Donnelly, and the Celtic TV commentator, and they were clearly saying it wasn't it definitely wasn't a penalty. And the Sports Scene is saying it was sort of hit his thigh and then comes off his chest. So it wasn't a penalty. So I've got to say it's not conclusive for me. I couldn't see it. But we've had sort of more obvious things go against us. So something like this, you know, I think maybe ultimately at the end of the day it was a fair result. You know, we
I'd
won
agree with that,
and they won the second half. And I know VAR are supposed to be there to sort of you know, get these fine margins and stop these sort of contentious decisions happening. But I think on balance, you know, I think it was a fair result.
You know, I'm going to qualify that, because I know that somewhere on a beach somewhere, Kevin Graham's listening to this show shouting at his phone, because he'll disagree with me because he thought Aberdeen were rotten, right? And I think the stats show that we completely dominated the possession in the second half. I get it. But if you come to Celtic Park, you're 2-0 down, and you find a way to claw that back rather than, you know, shrink, because they didn't shrink. You know, I thought there was bold changes made at half-time. They came out, they were as, you know, they were as combative as they had been in the first half, and they pulled it back, and they played to their strengths and our weaknesses. So I think you need to give them credit. We can dominate the ball all we like. You know, we didn't manage to have that cutting edge in the second half.
That's the point. That's the point of football. Look at the results we've had. The great, you know, the result against Barcelona. it doesn't matter the possession at all. You can have 1% possession and still win. So the point of football is to put the ball in the net and get maximum points.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some great points coming through in the comments. Keep them coming, ladies and gents. Michael O'Kane says, I played against Paul McStay under 15s in the Scottish Cup, and he stood out then. The funny thing that Willie was saying is, Paul McStay wasn't one of these 8-year-old prodigies running about with a football. Apparently, he didn't really have much interest until a wee bit later on, moving into his early teens. And then as soon as he got a football at his feet, people were saying, wait a minute, this guy's unbelievable. And I mean, that's the thing as well. Imagine being Willie McStay in that McStay household, doing so well, schoolboy football, breaking into the Celtic, and then your wee brother's Paul McStay. I mean, you just can't compete with that. And of course, for a while, there was 3 of them, because Raymond was in the reserve team until he was about 26. He's still playing for the reserves. And there was this, feeling, when are they going to share a pitch together? And I remember, I think it was McDermott Park, and Raymond McStay was on the bench. You think to yourself, oh, he must be another Paul. But he was about 25 at this stage and he hadn't made his debut. Can you imagine that now? A reserve player at 26 who's never played? Questions would be asked. AJ Tech, Thielen looked so calm. If I am his player looking at that guy, easy charm and calmness, then I'm totally confident. I did think that he oozed that confidence, Liam, but not in an arrogant way.
No, I mean, it's only arrogance if you don't deliver. And he's just come away with fought back to a 2-each draw with the champions. So any confidence he exudes is well and truly earned.
It is.
It's one of them. It's I really I think the fact that he's come from out with Scottish football and he's not got this fear of Celtic or Rangers. He's just got his team out there playing football. And you can have debates about, Celtic probably had more chances and we should have won it. But I think that was if there's such a thing as a neutral, watching that game, a 2-each draw, very entertaining game of football. Celtic's first half, Aberdeen's second half. I think, VAR decisions notwithstanding, a good advert for a competitive league.
Yeah, there was an excellent advert. You're right. Mamansis comes in to say that Sports Scene had an angle from behind the goal. I put super slow-mo on it, and it clearly hit his knee, then his chest. That's maybe the one I've seen. And then my green-tinted spectacles made me think that it hit his hand. Muchie Boy comes in also to say, I got a great view from my seat in real time. It was no penalty, unfortunately.
Hence the sad face.
The absolute sad face. AGSC's back in. The VAR check at the end does build the case. The reason I'm bringing this up, builds a case for Celtic to install more cameras, because we spoke about this, right? We said, right, we're a cash-rich football club. Let's do something here that really rattles the cages of the Scottish football Blazers, and let's install the absolute top-notch camera equipment. Because basically what you're saying then, Ian, is if you ever think that you're going to pull us over hot coals again for saying that you're incompetent, we will have some evidence to substantiate the claims, because we'll have the top-notch Champions League Prada VAR system, and we'll have all the images. I think Celtic should do it. Why not? We could also use it for data analysis, video analysis.
We could, but we don't. And the question is, why don't we? It's a no-brainer for me. It's not going to cost a great deal of money. We could even pay for it for every other club, and then just get them to pay back on tick. If that was, if we really wanted to make a stand, but certainly for our own, getting our own sort of standards up to sort of Premier League level, for example. We need it for Champions League anyway, or for Europe. So there's no, it's the infrastructure's there. But I don't know how motivated the board actually are. Because if it was me, I'd say I get it in.
You know what? I think it's one of the best points of what you've said there, Ian, is the fact that you could use that as an argument, couldn't you? We need temporary instalment of this 4 times a season. So we've decided we're just going to install it, and it prevents all that upheaval, etc. Ian Roy comes in as well. There should be a couple of those overhead cameras installed at Celtic Park. Surely it doesn't cost that much. The venue for the 137th anniversary Mass is again at St Mary's. It's on the 6th of November 2024, and that has been the venue for our annual Mass since the 125th anniversary, which was obviously in and around the Barcelona game that we spoke about earlier on. 137 years of unbroken history, Liam, and we're going back to where it all started at St Mary's. I think that's really important that the club continues to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not religious myself, but I know plenty of people are, and Celtic were founded to help the Irish Catholic immigrant community in Glasgow, and it's important that we don't lose that connection. So, yep, absolutely. It's great that it's happening. I support it, even though it's not something I would attend. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. And, it would be great if more people visited St Mary's as well, Ian, because we know that in the last couple of years, there's been a few occasions where they've been in real financial peril. And I think that, if there was a way of having something down there, Celtic related, where they could go in for a visit, because by the way, just to go in for a visit and see the beautiful angels at the front door as you walk in, the mosaic, which obviously we modelled our logo on, the Acsom logo, then you walk into the beautiful chapel. It is stunning. And the Brother Wilfred's portrait painted by Peter Housen's in there as well. And you look about and you just think, wow. I mean, I know it wasn't actually in the chapel. It was in a chapel hall, which is no longer there out the back. But you can even walk round to the area, which was the birthplace of Celtic. Honestly, it's a beautiful place. Go and visit it. Chuck a couple of pounds in the pot and try and help them, because it's so tough now, Ian, for chapels and churches to be self-sufficient.
Aye, yeah. Well, St Mary's, there's a sort of personal interest in that for me as well. My wife's from New Zealand, and she converted to Catholicism for her own reasons, really. But she was pregnant with her first child, and her parish was St Peter's, but it was actually getting under renovation. So when she got baptised, it was changed to St Mary's. So that's the ceremony for her and the group of other people that were sort of as adults getting baptised. So there's a personal connection there as well. But yeah, it's important. It's a massive part of our history. I don't know how involved Celtic are with that. So are you going to say something, Liam?
No. Sorry, I was just flex my fingers a wee bit.
Oh, sorry, right. Well,
I thought a cramp.
Save point. So yeah, I think it's very important. I'd say I don't know how much involvement Celtic have or how much they sort of support, especially St Mary's, but I hope they do. I know there's certain people that you know as well, John Paul, that sort of do a lot for the area and also for St Mary's. So yeah, it's a really important place for us, and yeah, I hope it continues.
I hope we need to keep that link. We need to keep that link alive. But in terms of what the club does financially, unless this has changed since the last time I spoke to St Mary's just a few months ago, the answer is nothing financially. And that's why when we did our first charity weekender on a Celtic State of Mind, we had to raise 14 grand to save the chapel. They were in debt. They had a roof that needed fixed. They couldn't switch on their radiators. And the Celtic fans clubbed together and raised 30,000 quid. Saved it. Saved the chapel. And that was only 3 or 4 years ago. And that was the big question. Why isn't there something in place that ensures, listen, we've already said we want a new camera system. We want to support this former Players Association. We want St Mary's to be looked after. Just get us a seat in the board, Liam. We'll put it right. Jerry, you're in. Let's get a better Celtic TV as well. That would make a difference. The reason I brought this up is because a few people have come in, and obviously on a Celtic State of Mind's team, we have got a lot of international Celts, and the word is that I'm getting is that Celtic TV isn't the most reliable, and it's not the best service either. And there's a few people coming in to say that. So I think we should have world-class departments, world-class products, world-class catering at the football games, etc. Celtic Football Club should have that. That should be a given. So yeah, everybody who is able to attend, I'm sure will enjoy that. I want to go back to a point you were making there. We do tend, Liam, to criticise certain aspects of the club, but I was just looking at the appointment of Paul Tisdale, the fact that there's a restructuring of the football department. We now have a head of football operations. And also we've ploughed a few quid into the Barrafield as well, which, as well as housing the women's team for training, etc., will be able to, let's hope, produce another Paul McStay. So, if we go down a few layers, if we peel back a few layers, maybe we are doing stuff in the background to pull the club into the modern age. What do you think, Liam? Are we just not seeing the results yet?
I mean, it's just a thing that we need to, I mean, it's the media operation is one part of it. The youth development is one part of it. There are so many areas where the club could do better. I mean, as you just said, stepping in to preserve the chapel with its historic link to the club is another thing as well, which, there just seems to be this very sort of narrow focus at Celtic, and it bleeds into so many different aspects of the club. And we really do need to, I mean, if we're talking about player development, we need to scrap the B team and just go back to having the reserve league. As Ian said before, the idea of financing, the VAR, the proper VAR for the whole league, just say, look, there's £5 million, just get it done. I would say there's a similar argument for a reserve league. Whatever the other teams in the league need to operate a reserve league, I would say if it's $500,000 a year, whatever, give them it, and just say, look, this is for our trading benefit. It's to keep our squad players match sharp. It is for development. I really think that's what we need. That is what we need.
When we go back to it, Liam, the reserve league, when it was scrapped, I remember doing a wee bit of research on it, and it was Falkirk. I think Falkirk were one of the clubs that commented on it. What the clubs had to do was ring fence 50 grand for the reserve team. And the reserve team could not be self-sufficient in so far as it couldn't make that money back from match day revenue, right? So it was quite short-sighted, because you're thinking to yourself, but you might, and you probably will produce a footballer who will make you a lot more money than the 50 grand, right?
Right.
And that was what the argument was at the time. And there were so many clubs who didn't want to ring fence that money because they were so skint and they had to budget it elsewhere. So the reserve league was scrapped, and it was in and around that time where we had this notion that it was all about academies as well, where it was all, let's focus on the youth players, let's produce incredible youth talent. But then the thing that was missing was that leap from the youth team to the first team. And it is a leap. It's a huge gap between the youth teams and the first teams. Playing against your contemporaries who are also 16, 17, 18 is different from learning your trade alongside someone who's a professional out of favour, coming back from injury, whatever the situation may be. And back in the day, it was always a hybrid, wasn't it? It was young guys, the best of the young guys, and also the guys on the fringes. I mean, at this moment in time, if we had a reserve team, Odin Holm would be playing for the reserve team, right? Mike Nawrocki would be in there playing reserve games. Sinisalo would maybe be getting some game time in there as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I would actually say that's more of a priority long term, would be sort the reserve team out. And then we can look at cameras as well. Paul Maguire comes in. We can't rely on beating Young Boys and Bruges at Paradise. Leipzig as well, but I don't think we will finish on 11 points. Should take something off Zagreb. They're the teams that I've heard everybody kind of talking about us taking points from, Ian. But as this competition progresses, I just think that, Young Boys, because of the form, etc., are a team that I think we should take something from. Zagreb, we're talking about that like we can go away and just beat them away from home. That's huge to go and do that in this Champions League group.
I think it's dangerous as well, and that was obviously proven against Dortmund. But I kind of disagree a little bit with Liam in terms of the thinking that Atalanta is kind of the next hardest game. I think Leipzig are going to get they're going to run as close. They're above Dortmund in the league, aren't they? Or they were recently anyway. I don't really pay attention to the German league, but so and Zagreb, these Eastern European teams, they've always got 2 or 3 sort of players that you've never heard of that look like they're superstars. I always remember watching. I think I said the other week on a blog about going to see Celtic play Braga a few years back, and thinking I'd never heard of Braga, and you think, geez, who's some of these players? They just looked amazing, and we were a decent side at the time. So I don't want to become overconfident or underestimate any of these teams. I think we need to be, again, I said this on a previous post as well about a boxing analogy. We need to box clever, and that we've got that. I suppose it shows as well that at that higher level we do have those chinks in the armour still. We're kind of head and shoulders above most over the course of a season in our own league. Yeah. But against these teams, they will punish us, where the likes of a Falkirk when we played them in the cup, we got away with. We'll get away with it with sort of the lower teams, especially in our league. Those goals that we lost in the cup game against Aberdeen, both cross balls to the left, which is a definite weak spot for us. So we still seem to be having a little bit of trouble with that as well. So I think we just, as long as we don't underestimate and we box a bit more clever, I think we've definitely got a chance of getting to the playoffs.
The way I'm looking at it now, and it's not really changed that much, is I think that from the remaining games at home, I'd be looking to get 2 wins out of 3. And from the 3 games away from home, I think 1 point. So what would happen then is we would have 10 points. And I think that would push you into that playoff spot. Peter Marshall, I agree with you, Peter. Peter has an incredible collection of Celtic books. I mean, I've got a few, but nowhere near like a complete collection. I think Peter could tell us in the comment section. I think there's something like 350 to 400 Celtic books out there, which is absolutely insane. I reckon I've got about 150 of them. I think Peter's got them all, virtually. Pity his book didn't get published. We're talking about the Maestro here. It was all set up with one of those funding websites where you had to sponsor to a level. Surprised it's not been updated and released. Well, Peter, when I spoke to Willie, I just basically said to him, listen, if he's needing an editor, if he's needing somebody to get it over the line, if he's needing a publisher, we can help him with all of the above. But I just don't know. It's a project, I guess, that if it goes off the rails, sometimes it's hard to get back on track. I seen that with my Celtic jersey book. It took me 7 years to get it finished, and I thought I was going insane by the end of it. But it's on my shelf there, so I must have done it. Can't remember writing half of it. John McBurney, the fight comes from the captain. Posted missing in Europe. Now, John, you take us on to the subject of the midfield positions then. And the way I'm looking at this, Liam, is we've got 5 midfielders vying for 3 places just now. Or do we set up differently against Atalanta? I'm thinking we're going to play with the 3. And if we do, who are the 3 and why? I'll come at you first, Liam.
Right, who are the 3? I would actually go Bernardo, Hatate and McGregor. I think that there's been a drop in form recently from our new boy, and I think maybe just benching him for a game might just be a wee reminder. You know, he's our record signing, but he's not the finished article yet, and he needs to step it up a wee bit.
That's like the counter argument to what I was saying yesterday, Liam. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to yesterday's show where I spoke uninterrupted for an hour on my own without taking a drink of any kind of liquid, and somehow managed to do it for an hour. It's not as easy as it sounds, by the way. And incidentally, someone popped into the comment section after it and said, it doesn't work with just you, mate. And I was like, well, I didn't plan it like that. You know, I would have rather had a couple of mates, but I was just no pals, Paul, on the show yesterday. So thanks everybody for seeing me through that with all your kind comments yesterday. I argued yesterday the opposite, and I thought that Engels has to play. I didn't disagree with you, Liam. I agree he hasn't been brilliant, but I was saying that maybe he should play through it. So my midfield 3 were indeed Bernardo, Engels and McGregor, with Hatate on the bench. How do you think Brendan Rodgers will shape up in the midfield?
Well, what I think he might do is probably with what you just suggested, Paul, but I personally agree with Liam. I think, you know, as I say, it's early enough in his career and he's young as well, you know, despite the fact that, you know, he's a record signing. It's no slight to be put on the bench. It's you know, it's tactical, I think, you know, and I think that Hatate and Bernardo, it's just a little bit more experience. They've played together longer, obviously, so they've got that familiarity as a trio. So I think we'd probably get, and then we can obviously introduce him from the bench, and that obviously is going to keep hopefully Hatate, you know, his sort of pencil sharpened, you know, and him kind of, you know, knowing that we've got someone like of the caliber of Engels on the bench. Ditto Bernardo. I don't think we've got that worry with Bernardo. I think he's actually the sign of the summer. I think I'm really glad that we got him back, and I think he's gone up a level, and he seems to sort of, especially with O'Reilly leaving, he seems to have just, you know, he seems to be exuding a bit more of an influence, and a kind of, an assistance to the sort of the younger or the newer players.
Yeah, brilliant signing, especially when you look at the price of him, £3.5 million. Franny Weldon, you're watching on X. Franny, good to see you, pal. Difficult challenge tomorrow, but I think we can surprise a few folk. I hope you're right. Smell the glove. Dream Team was awful, but I still watched it every week. What TV show? What TV show did you watch every week, even though you knew it was rotten? Don't say Acsom, right? Let us know in the comments section. Stephen Donnelly, surely Brendan has to let. Oh, by the way, talking about Acsom, I have yesterday had it confirmed that we're doing a double dunter. I think we called it in Fife this week. We're doing 2 episodes, and one of them is blowing my mind how incredible the guest is. So it's happening this week. It will probably be out next week, and yeah, I'm still coming to terms with it. I had to do a bit of research last night and order a couple of books as I do, so there'll be some speed reading tonight before the interview takes place. Surely Brendan has to line up differently tomorrow night. We cannot go 4-3-3. If he does, we will just get embarrassed. This is a good team we are playing, not buying the 6 players out. Rubbish. Yes, it is a very, very good side, and I also believe, Stephen, that they're capable of giving us a doing over. I said yesterday in relation to that Brendan Rodgers came out kind of like bold and brash and said that we're going to play our own way. And I get that might just be mind games. I absolutely get it. Why would you proclaim your tactics to the opposition in advance? You just wouldn't, would you? Would you? Danny Boy, only in Scotland do we hear we need fighters. We need good footballers. And I had a good conversation with Alan Morrison about this, Danny, at the beginning of the season, where he was saying we need both. They need to have both of these qualities. They need to be able to command the midfield, but also play, also have that range of passing, also be able to be an offensive force. So I think there's a combination of both. Jay Conley, Jay Larkin, feel exactly the same for tomorrow as I did pre-Dortmund. Press high will get destroyed. Brendan never took my advice, so I'll repeat it. Maeda up top to occupy both centre-halves, Kuhn supporting from left. I'll come to you first, Liam, in relation to the wingers, because I've been very impressed with Kuhn all season. And, you know, I am a member of the Maeda CSC that you set up prior to him even signing for Celtic. But I thought they were off it at the weekend, particularly in the second half. I didn't think that Kyogo got the service that he needs to be an effective striker for Celtic. And obviously, I think Kuhn, listen, we were rotten as a team, but Kuhn was pretty poor against Dortmund as well. And I want, regardless of what happens in terms of scoreline, I want Kuhn to step up tomorrow night. I don't want him just to be this guy who can turn it on against Falkirk and St Johnstone and all that, which is important domestically. I want to see it in the Champions League. He played well against Bratislava.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely more to come from Kuhn, and I think he can step up to that level. I would go with Kuhn and Maeda on the wings, and then, you know, if we're hopefully still in the game towards the end, you've then got Forrest who can come on for a bit of experience, or, you know, possibly Yang can come on and offer a bit of trickery, maybe win us a few free kicks, whatever. You know, and you've also got the option of, if you want to switch things up front, you can put Maeda through the middle. You know, if we suddenly find we need a goal or two, that's an option as well. So Maeda's the first name on the team sheet for me, but he gives you that diversity in that he's a winger, but he can also be a striker, and he's pretty good at both of them. So, yeah.
I remember going into that game against Dortmund, Ian, and Kuhn was talking about his German international aspirations, and he was certainly on a great run of form. Didn't play well against them. I'm sure the player will be very disappointed. But I see a kind of steeliness in Nicholas Kuhn. I think he's a very focused individual. I don't think he lets himself get carried away with a good form, but he'll probably be very, very hard on himself when it comes to not playing so well. But I would love to see a big performance by him tomorrow night, because, you know, I think there's this kind of view that he's had opportunities at big clubs before and he's never quite done it. And I want him to do it at Celtic.
Well, I think, you know, it's the way we played. You know, it's like in any team at any given point, you can maybe carry one or two who are having an off game, but we were just getting pummeled. So I think it just doesn't reflect well on anyone, you know. So I think he would have been conscious of obviously playing a German team and wanting to do as well. Probably the person in the team that wanted to do the most well, if you like. It just wasn't to be. So I think, but I do think, yeah, he's got ice in his veins. He looks at, he doesn't get overexcited when he scores. Doesn't seem to get carried away. So I expect a lot from him as well. I think he's going to keep getting better, and I think he's got the right manager in Brendan Rodgers. Obviously, I think the policy is, we want to polish these guys up and sell them on. We're getting them at the age that we get them at. Spend a couple of years and then sell them on. So I think he's definitely got the potential to be a big sale. I mean, I'd rather that wasn't the case. We could keep a team together for a good number of years and try and achieve something, and keep adding to it, exponentially. So we're increasing that quality. And with this the football doctor, again, him coming in, he's saying the right things. But if our policy is that they've got to be under 23 or whatever, and have a certain sell-on value, it's criteria that you're almost like you're making it impossible. Can you bring in someone's expertise, allow them to have their say, and do it their way, and then if it doesn't work, then obviously they pay the price. But you can't sort of come and put all these different criteria on somebody and expect it not to sort of and expect to always work, So, but anyway, long-winded answer to the question. I think Kuhn is there's bigger and better things to come from him, and I hope it's against Atalanta, starting with there.
Yeah, Kevin Millen will be watching the game from behind his couch. We spoke about Paul McStay earlier on in the show. I wrote to him. I told you my story. I want you to tell me in the comment section, ladies and gents tuning in, did you ever write to a footballer? Who was it? What was the response? Let us know in the comment section. I think it speaks volumes. If you didn't already love McStay, you love him now. I've never had an opportunity, of course, to thank him personally, but I would love to at some point in the future. Also, how do we line up in the midfield? Who's your three to line up against Atalanta? Let us know in the comment section. And a player who played alongside Paul McStay in a pretty poor Celtic side was John Collins. He won one trophy with the club, 1995 Scottish Cup, but he was a class act, and he'll be joining Acsom on the 1st of December in Glasgow. Tickets are available on the link underneath this video. Liam, once again, I've added the link to your fundraiser. Give us a wee update, mate.
All right, yeah. So, your man commented a minute ago, Franny Weldon. Thank you. One of several people who have donated. So thanks for that, Franny.
Good man, Franny.
And you're in the draw for the Samaras top. I'll just get it here. This Georgia Samaras match issue shirt from 2009. Everybody who donates is going into a draw to win this, excluding my wife and my dad, obviously. we don't do nepotism here on Acsom. Yeah, so I completed my 500-kilometer walk on Sunday. So currently sitting at 5:25.
Magic, mate. Well done.
My feet are absolutely burning, but it's a nice burn. I've lost about half a stone, although you probably can't see it because this top's a bit too wee for me. And yeah, we are sitting about, I think I'm about 30 Australian dollars, or I think that's about 20 quid in British money, off of hitting my $500 target. So the next couple of people that donate will take us over that threshold. So please help us out, guys. It is for mental health. It's for mental health research. So although the charity is based in Australia, I want to emphasize this is going to benefit people all over the world. It's about education and research to help mental health. As I said last week, I take medication every day for my mental health. Not afraid to admit that. I know plenty of others who do. And it's a daily reality that we all have to deal with. Sorry, wait a minute. Someone in the comments is saying wearing blue. This is purple, mate. I don't know how the camera's showing it up.
Definitely purple.
It's not blue, okay?
Definitely purple.
Oh, God. Right, but anyway.
100% purple.
So, help out mental health. You might win a Celtic top and you'll be doing a good deed. So please have a look at the link and consider donating. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and share it. And, well done, Liam. Absolutely brilliant for raising awareness and doing something positive to bring in some cash as well. So well done. Brilliant. Fantastic. And thanks, everybody, for getting involved. There you go. William says, well done for hitting your target. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. It's always an absolute pleasure to speak to you guys, Ian and Liam. Ian, you've got something else to...
A couple of shameless plugs, really. I know you admirably said on when you were talking to JP last week about the Bluebells headline in Barrowlands. So love the Bluebells and my friends and comrades and brothers. So they're playing the Barrowlands as part of the Celtic Connections next February the 1st, 2025. If you get a chance, I'd love, if I'm back, I'm going to go. Obviously, going to go. But if you get a chance, get a ticket and go, because they're a great band. Love them to bits, but they're some of the funniest people I've ever met as well. So some of the anecdotes and the jokes between the songs as well. Obviously sort of heritage band and whatever, but their new album's a cracker as well. So there's that. And also for any of the connoisseurs, Shaq from Liverpool, another sort of friends and dear to my heart. They've one of their sort of seminal albums, HMS Fable's just been released on vinyl. So if you see that, it's like 83 in the charts at the moment, but it's an absolute classic, and it's a gift you can't return if you get into Shaq. They're amazing.
No,
Thanks.
by the way, you're right. You're spot on. And by the way, both bands have a Celtic State of Mind. No doubt whatsoever about that. I had the absolute pleasure of recording an acoustic session with McHead. It's on the channel. Go and check it out. I still listen to it to this day, in awe of the man. What a songwriter. Unbelievable guy. Thanks everybody for getting involved. I'm feeling better now about tomorrow night. It's just a two-coucher in my view. Enjoy it. We'll be covering the game as always. And join us tomorrow at 12:30 for a Celtic State of Mind.